Hey guys, tonight we find ourselves beneath a moonlit Roman sky, stepping gingerly over the smooth marble floors of a steamy bathhouse. Well, at least trying to. The air is heavy, almost thick enough to cut, filled with the murmur of irritated senators fanning themselves, sweating beneath the weight of heavy togas. Torches flicker, casting lazy shadows that dance along the walls, lined with ornate mosaics depicting gods lounging beside gushing fountains. A cruel irony, considering the trickling, pitiful flow coming from Rome's actual fountains tonight. Now imagine yourself there, sandals squeaking awkwardly on the slick tiles, trying not to slip and break your dignity in front of these powerful, sweaty men. You probably won't survive this debate unscathed, or at least, not without yawning your way through the next 15 sections, but that's exactly the point. History isn't always gladiators and grand battles. Sometimes it's just sweaty politicians arguing endlessly about plumbing. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop a quick comment with your current location and local time. I always find it fascinating to see where everyone's tuning in from. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You listen closely to Senator Cassius as he wipes perspiration dramatically from his forehead, growling about the fountains running dry in his district. His voice, usually smooth as olive oil, has turned scratchy with frustration. Beside him, Senator Marcellus scoffs openly, theatrically adjusting the folds of his toga. "Cassius, your district's fountains have always run dry, just like your wit," he snaps, prompting a half-hearted chuckle from the sleepy assembly. Cassius flares, pointing angrily across the bathhouse, almost slipping on the damp tiles. "The issue isn't my wit, Marcellus. It's your ridiculous villa on the Palatine Hill. We all know your personal aqueduct branch siphons more water than Nero's bathhouse." Marcellus feigns outrage, clutching his chest. "How dare you accuse my modest home? I barely have enough pressure to rinse the grapes for dinner." You sigh quietly, leaning against a nearby marble pillar. It's late, your eyelids already feeling heavier with each petty jab exchanged. These arguments are becoming almost comforting in their predictability. The senators continue back and forth, oblivious to how trivial their squabbles might seem 2,000 years later. Historians today might focus on Roman grandeur, the mighty Colosseum, epic military campaigns, but here you are, waist-deep in a mundane yet oddly soothing argument about municipal water pressure. Cassius is now red-faced, pulling scrolls from his assistant's trembling hands, citing decades-old decrees. The Aqua Appia clearly states equal distribution among citizens. He waves the documents as though they are a weapon, ineffective against Marcellus's smug grin. Marcellus retorts lazily, "Those laws predate Caesar himself, Cassius. Are you suggesting we honor decrees older than your hairstyle?" The bathhouse fills with chuckles. You can't help but grin slightly despite yourself, knowing full well these senators will argue until dawn without resolving a single issue. Outside, crickets chirp gently, oblivious to human drama. Inside, however, the senators continue their tireless routine of accusations and exaggerated sighs. Suddenly, another senator steps forward, younger but no less theatrical. This is Senator Flavius, known more for his meticulously styled hair and immaculate sandals than political prowess. Still, he's determined to have his say. "Gentlemen," Flavius declares dramatically, "the truth is simple. We waste water on pointless luxuries. Public baths flow unchecked, yet hard-working citizens in my district barely wet their lips at public fountains." "Ah, the noble populist speaks," Cassius interrupts sarcastically. "Tell me, Flavius, how many slaves did it take to fill your private bath this morning?" Flavius blushes deeply, mumbling something unintelligible before retreating back to his corner. You feel a pang of sympathy mixed with mild amusement. Even in ancient Rome, hypocrisy was rarely rewarded. A sudden commotion distracts everyone. Senator Octavius, known mostly for his penchant for dozing off mid-session, awakens with a snort, nearly slipping into the shallow pool at his feet. What? He sputters, drawing laughter that ripples gently around the room. You catch yourself yawning deeply now, eyelids drooping heavily. Even the senators look increasingly worn out by their own banter. Cassius, sensing defeat but unwilling to concede, points accusingly once more at Marcellus, who yawns openly now, barely hiding it behind his ornate gold bracelet. "You'll regret your arrogance, Marcellus," Cassius warns, "especially when your fountains run dry completely." Rome remembers. Marcellus, unfazed, shrugs with exaggerated nonchalance. "Rome remembers many things, dear Cassius, but thankfully rarely about plumbing." A chorus of weary laughter fills the chamber. The debate sputters, losing its momentum as senators begin nodding off one by one. You glance around, noting how peaceful the scene has become despite the evening's heated words. The torches burn lower, casting softer, dreamier shadows along mosaic walls that show Neptune joyfully splashing about. For a moment, Rome's greatest minds rest their petty grievances, drifting quietly into sleep. As you watch senators drift off, some leaning gently against the shoulders of political rivals, you reflect on the comforting absurdity of history. Arguments over water pressure, trivial yet timeless, lull you gently toward dreams of your own. Tonight's journey has barely begun, yet your eyes grow heavier with each slow breath, carrying you softly away from the noise of the Roman Senate. You stretch lightly as the debate drifts into a softer, sleepier hum, senators half asleep on marble benches, the warmth of the room lulling them into gentle naps. But before long, Senator Cassius clears his throat dramatically, jolting everyone, including you, back to attention. He's not quite ready to surrender yet, clutching an ancient scroll as if it were a sacred relic. "Let us revisit," Cassius proclaims, voice trembling with dramatic gravity, "the venerable Aqua Appia." You suppress a sigh, knowing full well what's coming. Aqua Appia, the oldest aqueduct in Rome, built centuries ago by Appius Claudius himself, a marvel of engineering for its time and the source of endless headaches for senators ever since. Cassius unfurls the scroll with exaggerated reverence. "This aqueduct," he insists, "built with humble, honest intent, has become clogged with mismanagement, rusted pipes, and," he narrows his eyes, glaring pointedly at Marcellus, "questionable leaks." You watch Marcellus's eyebrows rise, feigning innocent confusion. "Questionable leaks?" he asks mildly, smoothing the fabric of his toga. "Are you suggesting that my family's villa is somehow connected to these mysterious plumbing failures?" Cassius nods, unrolling more parchment, maps so detailed and old they're almost illegible, even under torchlight. "Precisely," Cassius replies, voice growing conspiratorial. "It's common knowledge that certain private villas have unofficial access points, pipes tapping directly into the aqueduct's main line." Marcellus gasps theatrically, placing a hand against his chest. "Cassius, you wound me. Everyone knows my villa is no more lavish than a simple senator deserves." Someone snorts loudly, interrupting Marcellus's performance. Senator Aulus, usually quiet but tonight driven to rare sarcasm, mutters dryly, "Yes, Marcellus, just a humble home, with gardens that would put the hanging gardens of Babylon to shame." A few chuckles float around, echoing lazily off the marble walls. You feel your own mouth curl into a sleepy smile. Aqua Appia might indeed be old and riddled with problems, but tonight, it's clearly a stage for Rome's most talented amateur actors. Cassius, clearly emboldened by the mild laughter, continues pressing his argument. "Rust and mineral deposits choke our water supply. Maintenance teams find entire sections damaged by neglect. Do we simply ignore such decay?" Marcellus yawns expansively, clearly unmoved by Cassius's theatrical urgency. "We ignore nothing, Cassius. We merely prioritize. Perhaps your dramatic accusations should target the curators instead?" A ripple of uneasy laughter passes through the Senate. Marcellus has struck a sensitive nerve. Rome's water commissioners, officially the curators aquarum, are notoriously unpopular, partly because their endless meetings bore everyone to tears, but also because, when pressed, these officials produce nothing but vague reports and excuses about aging infrastructure. Historians still debate whether this was bureaucratic incompetence or intentional obstruction, a sort of ancient Roman red tape designed to hide corruption. Cassius waves off Marcellus's comment impatiently. "No, Marcellus. Blame rests with those who selfishly take more than their share. Rusty pipes don't selectively target poorer districts." His gaze hardens. "Greedy senators do." The room shifts uneasily. Everyone knows these accusations could spiral dangerously if allowed. Marcellus seems undisturbed, merely shrugging with practiced indifference. "Dear Cassius," he says airily, Your passion would be admirable if it weren't so clearly a smokescreen to hide your own district's failings. You glance around, noticing senators subtly shaking their heads or hiding yawns behind their sleeves. Accusations of corruption are as predictable as the sunrise, and just as tiresome. Still, Cassius isn't finished yet. With flourish worthy of a seasoned stage actor, he gestures grandly toward the faded mosaic depicting the god Neptune, who gazes impassively back at the Senate from the wall. Look, Cassius demands dramatically, at how our ancestors honored the waters. Would Neptune tolerate our neglect? Marcellus snorts lightly. Neptune would probably ask you to lower your voice, he says lazily. Your volume alone is enough to drain the aqueduct dry. Another wave of weary chuckles spreads through the chamber. Even Cassius struggles to maintain his stern expression, lips twitching into a grudging half-smile. The mood, tense just moments before, slowly softens again, the senators visibly wilting under the late hour and endless debate. The Aqua Appia, once the lifeblood of Rome, now reduced to a prop in their perpetual political theater. You feel your eyes drifting again, the gentle murmur of voices blending into a soothing lullaby of bureaucratic bickering. Yet before sleep fully claims you, a younger senator timidly steps forward. Senator Tullius, thin and pale, more scholar than politician, hesitantly clears his throat. Perhaps, he says quietly, almost drowned out by Cassius's booming presence, perhaps if we scheduled more thorough inspections. The senators groan in unison, shaking their heads. Someone mutters wearily, "Not another committee." Tullius blushes, retreating quickly. You watch sympathetically as he disappears into the shadows, his earnest suggestion swallowed whole by senatorial cynicism. Some things, you realize sleepily, never change. Cassius, finally sensing the waning energy of the room, waves dismissively. Fine, he sighs. Perhaps the Aqua Appia's problems cannot be solved tonight, but mark my words, senators, ignoring rusted pipes today means dealing with flooded streets tomorrow. You're about to nod off completely when Marcellus, ever the last word, murmurs softly, barely audible, and ignoring inflated egos tonight means peace until dawn. A few senators nearby chuckle drowsily, too tired to laugh louder. You smile gently at this, your head nodding softly as the Senate finally quiets, torches flickering low. Rusty pipes, suspicious leaks, and theatrical accusations. Rome's senators are masters of debate, but amateurs at solving actual problems. It's strangely comforting, you think, drifting gently into dreams. Tonight, the Aqua Appia flows onward, oblivious to the petty squabbles of men. And maybe, you muse, that's exactly as it should be. Your eyelids flutter briefly, barely registering Senator Marcellus's soft snores and Cassius's fading grumbles. But peace is fleeting. From somewhere near the rear benches, Senator Lucius raises his voice cautiously, as though testing whether the chamber has truly slipped into blissful sleep. Unfortunately, it hasn't. Not quite yet. Gentlemen, Lucius says softly, carefully maintaining his appearance of polite calm, perhaps our real trouble isn't rusty pipes or clogged aqueducts. Perhaps the heart of the matter lies in certain private ambitions. You groan inwardly, realizing immediately where Lucius is steering the conversation. Rome is infamous for its secret plumbing, a clandestine network of pipes that wealthy senators quietly tap to supply water to their lavish rooftop gardens and hidden swimming pools. For decades, this unofficial network has inspired whispers, accusations, and late-night senatorial shouting matches just like tonight's. Historians still debate exactly who initiated this lavish plumbing arms race, though few doubt its impact on Rome's dwindling public water supply. Lucius hesitates, eyes darting nervously around the chamber. His reputation is one of caution, overly cautious, even by senatorial standards. Marcellus, now half awake again, rolls his eyes theatrically. Come on, Lucius, he yawns loudly, stretching one arm lazily toward the ceiling. If you've discovered yet another secret fountain scandal, do share. We haven't had nearly enough of those tonight. A ripple of sleepy chuckles passes through the benches. Lucius blushes faintly, mustering his courage before continuing. It's not idle gossip, Marcellus. My men stumbled upon a very real hidden pipe beneath a certain villa. Before Lucius can finish, Senator Cassius jolts fully awake, eyes suddenly alert and gleaming. Which villa? He demands loudly, looking hopeful for fresh ammunition against Marcellus. Lucius clears his throat delicately, eyes flicking nervously from Cassius to Marcellus. It seems the villa in question belongs to Senator Drusus. Instantly, murmurs ripple across the benches. Drusus, absent tonight, is usually above reproach, an elderly statesman known for virtue, simplicity, and tedious moral lectures. The notion that he might secretly siphon public water is deliciously scandalous, even if it's clearly exhausting the room. Marcellus, fully awake again now, chuckles wryly. Drusus, the old philosopher? Does he even bathe more than once a year? Cassius glares impatiently at Marcellus's interruption, waving Lucius on. Continue, Lucius. What exactly was found? Lucius leans in, voice conspiratorial yet cautious, clearly savoring his moment in the spotlight. My people followed an unusual water current near the Celian Hill, beneath Drusus's gardens. They discovered bronze pipes carefully concealed within the stonework, diverting water directly from the aqueduct to feed an elaborate rooftop bathing complex. Cassius gasps dramatically, feigning shock. The virtuous Drusus enjoys secret baths on rooftops? Scandalous indeed. He looks delighted, probably mentally rehearsing tomorrow's gossip at the forum. Marcellus shrugs, yawning again. Who among us wouldn't appreciate a discreet rooftop bath? Perhaps he merely needed solitude for his endless moralizing. More laughter ripples sleepily around the room. You rub your temples gently, realizing that each revelation, scandalous or mundane, inevitably loops back in gentle ridicule, never leading anywhere meaningful. Lucius, encouraged by attention, presses on. It's more than a bathhouse. Witnesses also report lavish fountains, lush rooftop gardens. Truly extravagant. And here we are, squabbling over trickling public fountains. Cassius stands dramatically, gesturing passionately to the mosaic of Neptune, as if the sea god might intervene. This confirms everything I've warned. Private greed robs Rome of public good. How many more secret pipes must we discover before acting decisively? Marcellus groans audibly, slumping back against the bench. Cassius, acting decisively has never been this Senate's strength. Let's just pretend shock and promise inquiries we'll conveniently forget by morning. You chuckle softly, appreciating Marcellus's bluntness. Cassius shoots Marcellus a glare hot enough to boil water, but Marcellus merely shrugs sleepily. Lucius, meanwhile, seems both relieved and disappointed. He's revealed something scandalous, yet somehow nothing changes. Senators, Lucius tries again weakly, surely we must investigate. Marcellus waves a hand dismissively. Of course, of course. We'll launch a thorough, ineffective investigation immediately. Cassius ignores Marcellus's sarcasm, leaning toward Lucius eagerly. Who else, Lucius? Surely Drusus isn't alone. Lucius hesitates, blushing deeply. Well, there were rumors regarding Senator Quintus's estate as well. Quintus, napping openly near the bathhouse door, wakes abruptly upon hearing his name. What now? He sputters, blinking drowsily. I barely water my garden. Half my olive trees died last summer. Marcellus laughs openly at Quintus's genuine confusion. Fear not, Quintus. You're merely tonight's sacrificial scapegoat. Tomorrow it will be someone else. Quintus sighs heavily, shaking his head. Fine, accuse away. Perhaps you can water my dying olives with all the tears from tonight's complaints. A sleepy chuckle fills the chamber, easing tensions once more. You notice senators yawning openly now, sleep returning like a soothing tide. Lucius, sensing his moment fading, tries desperately for one last attempt at dignity. If we ignore such blatant abuses, how can we ever solve Rome's water crisis? Marcellus smiles sleepily. Lucius, Rome has always survived on scandal and gossip. Water will flow whether we investigate or not. Cassius grumbles quietly, clearly unsatisfied but too tired to argue further. He sinks back onto his bench, eyes heavy. You watch senators drift slowly again, torches flickering lower, shadows growing softer. The hidden pipes, scandalous fountains, and whispered gossip fade gently away, like mist evaporating under the morning sun. You feel yourself sliding softly toward sleep, comforted somehow by the timeless predictability of politics. Historians may still debate endlessly who truly started this luxurious arms race of private plumbing, but tonight, none of that matters. Rome's senators, exhausted from squabbling, gently surrender to sleep. And so do you, eyelids heavy, lulled into dreams of marble rooftops and gentle fountains bubbling softly beneath Roman stars. You blink awake gently, the murmur of the Senate now a comforting drone, more background music than argument. For a moment, you wonder if they've finally given up and drifted off entirely. But no. Just when peace seems assured, you notice Senator Sextus shuffling papers, clearing his throat with exaggerated importance. He stands slowly, glancing apologetically around the chamber. Your heart sinks softly. Another round of endless bureaucracy awaits. My fellow senators, Sextus begins delicately, adjusting his toga with meticulous care. Perhaps it's time we finally summon those responsible, the curators aquarum. A collective groan ripples gently across the marble benches. The curators aquarum, Rome's esteemed water commissioners, have earned a reputation for holding the city hostage in dull bureaucratic limbo. It's not exactly gladiatorial entertainment, just dry debates about algae buildup, missing maintenance funds, and eternal mind-numbing investigations. Cassius sighs theatrically, rolling his eyes toward the ceiling. Oh yes, let's drag those esteemed bureaucrats in here once more. Maybe this time they'll tell us how algae mysteriously escaped their inspections. Marcellus chuckles sleepily. Perhaps the algae bribed them, he murmurs, drawing amused nods around the chamber. Sextus, unfazed by the gentle mockery, signals to an aide. Moments later, a group of visibly weary men shuffle forward, dressed in simple tunics bearing the insignia of the water commissioners. You watch sympathetically as these beleaguered curators nervously clutch parchment rolls, their faces etched with resignation. This clearly isn't their first sleepless night before the Senate. Esteemed curators, Sextus announces solemnly, his voice echoing off the marble walls, we have serious questions regarding recent reports of insufficient inspections and dubious expenditures. The head curator, Publius, an elderly man whose beard seems grayer each time he faces this chamber, steps forward, his voice a soft monotone honed through decades of bureaucratic survival. Senators, as always, we diligently investigate every claim brought before us. Cassius snorts loudly, earning a weary glance from Publius. Oh yes, diligently, Cassius mocks softly. That's why half the city baths look like stagnant ponds, right? Publius adjusts his spectacles with exaggerated patience. Algae bloom, Senator Cassius, is a natural occurrence. Our teams manage it routinely. Routinely ignore it, Cassius corrects dryly, eliciting scattered chuckles. Publius merely sighs, clearly accustomed to such exchanges. Marcellus, eyes already half closed again, yawns openly. Tell us, Publius, why do these routine algae inspections always conveniently miss certain neighborhoods, particularly ones belonging to your more affluent friends? Publius blushes faintly, visibly restraining frustration. Allegations, Senator Marcellus, are simple. Reality is complex. Algae bloom can arise unpredictably. A senator from the back mutters quietly, unpredictably convenient, prompting another round of sleepy laughter. You feel your eyelids growing heavier again. Watching senators debate with curators over algae feels almost cruelly tedious, yet somehow soothing in its predictability. History, you realize sleepily, isn't always grand battles or heroic deeds. Sometimes it's just tired men arguing quietly about algae. Sextus, sensing the Senate's waning attention, clears his throat again. Fine, algae aside, what of the missing maintenance funds? Where exactly has the budget allocated to aqueduct repairs vanished to? Publius shuffles nervously through scrolls, clearly stalling. Senator Sextus, records indicate the funds were allocated properly. Any irregularities? Cassius interrupts, voice thick with sarcasm. Let me guess, still under investigation? Publius nods wearily. Precisely. Marcellus yawns again, shaking his head. The longest investigation since Rome itself was founded. Publius, clearly exhausted by decades of similar debates, offers only a mild shrug. Careful investigations take time, senators. Sextus, visibly frustrated, tries one final appeal. Publius, can you at least reassure us that urgent aqueduct maintenance is actually occurring? Publius brightens slightly, as if relieved to discuss something tangible. Absolutely, Senator Sextus. In fact, just last week, teams repaired significant leaks in the Aqua Marcia. Cassius groans theatrically. Ah, wonderful. So my district's fountains can remain dry another month, while Marcellus enjoys steady baths. Marcellus offers a sleepy grin. Priorities, Cassius. You smile slightly despite yourself, comforted by the gentle rhythm of senatorial bickering. Even the curators, weary and bureaucratic as they are, seem familiar, predictable, like actors replaying a beloved old comedy. Historians, you reflect sleepily, still argue about Rome's endless bureaucratic inefficiency, whether it was calculated obstruction or simple incompetence. But tonight, watching Publius nervously fidget under Cassius's gaze, you suspect the answer hardly matters. Bureaucracy, you think dreamily, is timeless, comfortably so. Publius, finally allowed to retreat, shuffles gratefully back toward his aides. Sextus sighs deeply, admitting gentle defeat. Clearly, senators, nothing more can be gained tonight. Perhaps our problems truly lie beyond mere algae or lost budgets. Cassius scoffs softly, but even he seems too weary to argue further. Marcellus, already half asleep, nods absently. Problems always lie beyond solutions, Sextus. It's practically a senatorial motto. Gentle laughter drifts lazily across the chamber, senators visibly relaxing again. Sextus, smiling faintly now, settles back into his bench. Torches flicker lower, shadows dancing dreamily on mosaic walls, Neptune gazing serenely downward, seemingly amused by the human drama. You let yourself sink gently towards sleep again, comforted by the gentle predictability of Rome's endless debates. Problems unresolved, questions unanswered, yet somehow reassuringly human. The curators aquarum shuffle quietly away, likely returning to endless inspections and forgotten investigations. The Senate drifts towards silence again, murmuring softly like a gentle stream. Your eyelids flutter gently, images softening, blending gently into dreams. Tonight, bureaucracy is no longer tiresome but comforting, the endless cycle of debate fading peacefully into the background. Historians might debate forever who was truly responsible for Rome's plumbing woes, but for now, none of that matters. Sleep finally claims you softly, comfortably, as the gentle murmur of senators and curators fades slowly away beneath the steady, distant flow of Rome's timeless aqueducts. A gentle drip-drip echoes rhythmically somewhere in the shadowy bathhouse, mingling softly with the senators' sleepy murmurs. Just as you begin to believe the night's debates have finally quieted, a sudden splashing sound jolts your attention back to reality. You glance over to see Senator Octavius, usually distinguished and impeccably dressed, clutching his soaked toga, a look of startled indignation on his face. Apparently, the low water pressure issue extends even to the public baths themselves. So much so that poor Octavius had leaned too far over, trying to coax water from a barely trickling spout, and nearly ended up headfirst in the shallow basin. You suppress a sleepy chuckle watching him gather the dripping fabric with wounded dignity. Cassius, half dozing against a marble column, opens one eye lazily. "Careful, Octavius," he drawls, a soft smirk tugging his lips. "We wouldn't want to lose you in a tragic bathing accident. Rome has enough to mourn already." Octavius shoots him a pointed glare, wringing out his toga with exaggerated disdain. Perhaps if some senators, he sniffs dramatically, didn't monopolize water for their private luxuries, ordinary Romans could bathe without risking their lives, or dignity. A ripple of mild laughter bubbles quietly through the bathhouse, senators lazily stretching as they shift positions. You sigh gently, sensing another debate about to stir from slumber. Octavius, his pride still dripping onto the marble floor, isn't finished yet. He waves grandly around the chamber, his voice slipping into the dramatic rhythm of well-practiced complaints. "Look around, gentlemen. Rome prides itself on magnificent baths, places of cleanliness, dignity, and civilized debate. And yet, here we sit, arguing endlessly, while our public baths run barely better than a trickle." Marcellus yawns openly, leaning comfortably against the bench. "Octavius, public baths are overrated. At least yours was a dignified slip. Some of us have stubbed toes repeatedly on dry, slippery marble due to non-existent water pressure." Cassius chuckles softly, shaking his head. "Yes, dignity in public baths is a delicate balance. Too much water, we drown. Too little, we slip. Perhaps Neptune mocks us from his watery throne." You smile gently at the imagery, imagining Neptune rolling his eyes from beneath distant ocean waves. It wouldn't surprise you if the sea god found the senators' petty squabbles endlessly amusing. Meanwhile, Senator Decimus, typically quiet, timidly raises his hand, looking sheepish. "Speaking of dignity," he whispers hesitantly, "has anyone else noticed how difficult it is to properly rinse soap from one's hair with this pressure?" A soft chuckle spreads gently around the benches. "Soap, Decimus?" Marcellus mocks gently, eyes half-lidded. "Truly, your complaints reflect the gravest concerns of our republic." Decimus blushes faintly, mumbling something about hygiene and public health, but his words trail off into embarrassed silence. Cassius nudges Marcellus playfully. "Laugh if you must, but hygiene is critical. Perhaps low water pressure explains why some senators are easier smelled than seen." Marcellus gasps dramatically, feigning wounded dignity. Cassius, your accusations become increasingly personal. I'll have you know my villa's baths are perfectly functional. It's the public ones that offend. Of course, Cassius retorts mildly, because your villa is supplied by pipes diverted straight from our aqueducts, as we've well established. Octavius, still damp and disgruntled, nods firmly. Precisely. Private extravagances starve public facilities. The baths reflect our civic pride, or lack thereof. The senators murmur in weary agreement, though none seem eager to act beyond idle complaints. You watch them shuffle positions, the marble benches cold despite the room's warmth. Historians might debate endlessly whether Rome's public baths truly symbolize the empire's civic virtues or its glaring inequalities, but tonight it simply feels like a never-ending cycle of gentle grievances. Senator Vetus suddenly clears his throat, hesitant but determined. Perhaps, he begins cautiously, if we created stricter rules around bathhouse usage, we might improve pressure citywide. Marcellus groans softly, head tilted back toward the ceiling. Rules, Vetus? We've been here for hours debating leaks, pipes, algae, corruption. Must we add bathhouse etiquette, too? Cassius chuckles dryly, nodding in mock seriousness. Yes, Vetus, perhaps rules mandating soap application, rinsing techniques, and maximum soaking times. Rome's bureaucracy truly knows no limits. Even Vetus blushes faintly, realizing how tedious his suggestion sounds amid a night of endless trivialities. He quietly retreats, sitting down heavily on the marble bench beside Decimus, who sympathetically pats his shoulder. A comfortable silence settles again briefly, broken only by soft yawns and shifting senators. Marcellus, finally looking as exhausted as everyone else, sighs dramatically. Senators, maybe we should simply admit defeat. Baths will remain dry, senators will remain unwashed, and dignity will remain questionable. Cassius smiles wryly, stretching slightly, adjusting his toga. Perhaps we should embrace our plight. If Rome's senators smell sufficiently unpleasant, our political rivals might avoid us entirely. Soft laughter ripples through the sleepy chamber. Even Octavius, still damp from his humiliating slip, cracks a faint smile. Indeed, Cassius, perhaps our low water pressure serves as Rome's silent protest against senatorial vanity. You chuckle softly, appreciating the gentle self-mockery. The senators begin settling back into comfortable dozing positions, slipping quietly towards sleep once again. The debates, the sarcasm, the theatrical indignation, it's all comfortably predictable, somehow reassuringly human. As your eyelids grow heavier, you reflect dreamily on how the smallest inconveniences spark the longest debates. Senators might grumble endlessly, but their complaints rarely produce meaningful change. Just gentle humor, whispered accusations, and endless bureaucracy. Tonight, Rome's baths may run dry. Senators may slip embarrassingly on slick marble tiles, and public hygiene might be sacrificed for private extravagance. But you think sleepily, at least senators' egos remain intact, nurtured gently by endless, meaningless debate. You drift slowly towards sleep again, comforted by this eternal Roman rhythm. As the murmurs fade gently around you, the soft, rhythmic drip-drip of distant baths lulls you into peaceful dreams. Dreams where Rome's senators finally quiet, bathing happily in crystal-clear waters beneath starlit skies, smiling softly at Neptune's gentle approval. You awaken to the faint clatter of sandals on marble. Someone's pacing again. You tilt your head toward the sound and catch sight of Senator Gaius, gesturing wildly near the entrance. A wiry man with an endless capacity for indignation, he seems halfway through a rant before he even reaches the speaking floor. And while we're wasting our breath on soap bubbles and algae, he declares to no one in particular, the real injustice is being carried out beneath our feet. You blink slowly, trying to adjust to the new wave of passion filling the chamber. Cassius groans from his corner. Gaius, if this is about your pet theory again, it's not a theory. Gaius snaps, marching to the center. It's a travesty. Our public engineers are being overruled, and our city's water priorities manipulated by entertainment demands. The senators shift, mildly interested. Marcellus squints blearily. Entertainment? Yes. Gaius insists, thumping the floor with his sandal. Arena games, parades, animal spectacles. These crowd-pleasing events are being prioritized over critical aqueduct repairs. Gladiator sponsors receive more water allocation than entire neighborhoods. A few murmurs rise. Now that is a spicy accusation. Water reallocation was a shadowy game in Rome, Essentially, whoever had the emperor's ear or the bigger bribe got the better flow. The public baths and fountains? They often came second. Historians still argue, Gaius says, leaning on the word argue with performative emphasis, whether the prioritization of games over utilities was part of a grand plan to distract the public. Bread and circuses, yes, but how about baths and blood? You stifle a yawn, though your interest perks a little. The image is stark. Sweaty gladiators preparing for combat in lavish training pools, while Roman citizens crouch beside dry fountains, shaking their buckets, hopefully. Senator Livia, one of the few women in the chamber tonight, leans forward. Gaius, surely you're not suggesting the Colosseum is hoarding water? That place is a pit of sand and blood, not some spa. Gaius points a triumphant finger. That's where you're wrong. The underground staging areas, the hypogeum, require constant moisture to prevent cracking. They use water to keep dust down, cool the tunnels, even clean the beast cages. Meanwhile, families in the Aventine haven't had steady flow for weeks. Marcellus, ever the unbothered aristocrat, waves a hand. So gladiators need a rinse before getting skewered. Is that really a problem? Cassius leans in, suddenly animated. No, it is a problem. I've had complaints from my district. A community well is dry every day by noon, and yet I pass fountains at the stadium, bubbling joyfully for the Lions. Octavius raises a hand sleepily. We're now comparing Lions' hydration schedules to citizens? You laugh, Gaius says solemnly, but in this city, even a beast has better access to fresh water than a baker's apprentice. The Senate falls quiet. You can feel the weight of that comparison hanging in the air. For a moment, even Marcellus doesn't offer a sarcastic retort. Somewhere in the distance, a fountain burbles faintly, as if mocking the silence. A younger senator, Rufus, finally speaks. If what you say is true, Gaius, why hasn't the Water Commission done anything? Because, Gaius says grimly, many of them are bribed, by show sponsors, by chariot stables, by wine merchants who dilute their barrels with our water and sell it at twice the price. A sharp intake of breath echoes near the chamber's edge. Bribes. A dangerous word, even in a chamber built on them. Still, no one disputes it. They just look away, pretending to adjust their robes or reread old notes. You settle deeper into your seat, the familiar weight of Rome's priorities sinking in around you. The infrastructure crumbles quietly, while lions roar for more water and senators wring their hands over spilled Falernian. Cassius finally breaks the tension. So what do you suggest, Gaius? Cut the water to the arena and spark a riot when the crowds can't bathe in the fountains before a show? No, Gaius says, surprisingly calm. But we regulate it. We measure. We stop pretending the water is infinite. We assign real limits. Livia lifts an eyebrow. Regulation in Rome? Bold of you to dream. You smile sleepily. Bold indeed. Regulating Roman water use would require more than dreams. It would require a miracle, or an emperor who cared more about plumbing than pageantry. And as far as you know, that emperor does not currently exist. Still, a sense of mild admiration stirs. Gaius, for all his hand-flapping and dramatic pacing, may be the only one tonight who actually wants to solve anything. Most just want to win the argument, get a laugh, or, more often than not, fall asleep with their dignity intact. Marcellus, ever the cynic, finally speaks again. Let the gladiators have their rinse, Gaius. Let the lions have their splash. Let Rome have its illusion of order. He leans back, hands folded across his stomach, eyes fluttering shut again. We can't fix everything, but we can at least enjoy the show. And that's Rome, isn't it? A city of fountains and facades, of blood and bureaucracy, of senators who argue about water pressure while the streets grow dusty and the aqueducts groan under the strain. You close your eyes, letting the murmur of voices wash over you once more. Gladiators, lions, chariot races, rooftop baths. Rome divvies up its water like a performance. One trickle for the poor, one for the privileged, and a full stream for the circus. The senators keep talking, but their words fade into a warm haze. You let go of the politics, the sarcasm, the gladiators, and slip gently into dreams. Dreams where the fountains of Rome flow clear again, and every citizen gets a clean splash before bed. It's deep into the night now, the kind of hour when the torches hiss more than flicker and the shadows stretch long across the Senate floor. You notice Senator Fabius returning from the corridor, cradling a jug of lukewarm water like a rare artifact. He pours a splash into a shallow basin, watches it swirl for a moment, then sighs theatrically. "You know," he murmurs, not really to anyone, "I've been thinking about the pipes themselves." Cassius raises an eyebrow from his perch, half wrapped in his own toga like a reluctant ghost. "Gods help us. Another theory?" But Fabius continues, eyes locked on the water. "What if it's not just the leaks, or the secret siphons, or the selfish senators? What if it's the pipes that are poisoning us?" A beat of silence. Then Marcellus, voice still thick with drowsiness, cracks one eye open. "Poisoning? Yes," Fabius says slowly, dreamily even. "The lead, the aqueducts, the household plumbing, all of it runs through lead pipes. Day in, day out, we drink from them. We bathe in them. We pour that water into our children's cups." You shift slightly. Now this is a new thread, and a chilling one. Fabius raises the jug again. "Lead corrodes. It seeps into everything. I've spoken to physicians. Some of them whisper that too much exposure dulls the mind." Marcellus snorts. "That explains half the Senate." Cassius grins faintly. "And the other half, their wives." A few chuckles drift through the chamber, but it's a tired sound, reluctant. Fabius remains solemn, clearly unconvinced by the levity. "We joke, but look around. Have you noticed the forgetfulness lately? The confused speeches? The glazed stares mid-debate? Even you, Marcellus. You once quoted Virgil and attributed it to Cicero." Marcellus gasps in mock horror. "I would never." "You did," Fabius insists softly. "And I don't blame you. I think it's all of us. A slow erosion, not of stone, but of thought." You shift in your seat again, uneasy now. The idea has lodged itself quietly in the back of your mind. Lead, soft, malleable, efficient, and utterly invisible. Historians still argue whether lead poisoning played any role in the decline of Rome. Some dismiss it outright. Others claim it quietly unspooled the fabric of leadership, a slow numbing of reason and judgment. Senator Tullius, the scholar, still recovering from his earlier embarrassment, leans forward with renewed interest. "I've read the same theories," he says, voice cautious. "Chronic exposure could impair memory, behavior, even fertility." Cassius waves a hand. "We've had dull minds and fewer babies before lead pipes. That's just politics and prudence." "Still," Tullius presses, "what if the water system itself is the hidden enemy? What if all our debates about pressure, access, leaks are missing the real threat?" There's a new weight in the air now. The sort of quiet that arrives when men realize they may be too late to notice something they've lived with for too long. Marcellus, ever the realist, exhales slowly. "And what would you have us do, Fabius? Tear out every pipe in the city? Dig up streets that have stood for centuries? Tell the public we've been poisoning them with every sip of water?" Fabius doesn't answer right away. He just watches the water swirl gently in the basin. "No," he says eventually. "I don't think we tell them anything. I just think we stop pretending we're immune." Silence again. The torches pop faintly as the last of the oil burns down. Even the mosaics seem to lean in to listen. Senator Livia breaks the stillness, her voice calm, even wistful. "Maybe we've all gone a little mad, but I don't think it's the pipes. I think it's the pressure." She smiles gently at her own pun, but no one laughs this time. Because pressure is exactly what Rome thrives on, and cracks beneath. Pressure to keep appearances, to maintain control, to out-argue, out-maneuver, outlast. Maybe the water system is just a reflection of the rest, ancient, impressive, and slowly corroding from the inside. You rest your head gently against the cool stone pillar behind you, the words swirling around like the water in Fabius's bowl. A city held together by pipes and pride. An empire where the unseen toxins are not only in the water, but perhaps in the very way things have always been done. Fabius pours the last of his jug into the basin, watching it ripple out. "Maybe," he whispers, "Rome isn't dying from invasion or rebellion. Maybe it's just being quietly diluted." You watch the last ring of water fade into stillness and let your eyes drift closed. There's something almost peaceful in the image, a city slowly forgetting itself, gently, like falling asleep in warm water. No alarms, no collapse, just the subtle, slow weight of lead. You stir again, only half conscious now, as the rustle of robes and the clink of goblets pull you back from the edge of dreams. This time the chamber feels different, softer, almost festive. Senators recline a bit more than usual, and goblets of Falernian wine, somehow procured in the dead of night, are now making lazy rounds. Marcellus raises his glass. "If Rome's aqueducts are poisoning us, we might as well toast before the end. A sleepy cheer rises, half-hearted but sincere. You glance around, goblets passed from one marble hand to the next, sloshing slightly. In the background, a young aide pours more wine from a clay amphora, clearly regretting his life choices. Cassius, already pink-cheeked, lifts his own goblet. To water, the slow killer, and to wine, the gentle cure. You smile despite yourself. If ever there was a Roman solution to contaminated plumbing, it was replacing water with alcohol. Marcellus leans in toward you, his voice a whisper now. Did you know some senators bribe the water curators with wine? He snorts. Barrels of Falernian, just to redirect a little pressure to their garden fountains. You raise an eyebrow, and he chuckles. Oh yes. Forget gold. If you want Rome's attention, offer something they can sip. It's not just hearsay. You've heard stories. Wealthy neighborhoods with near-constant flow, not because of their strategic location, but because a clever merchant offered the right vintage to the right official. One of the curators even had a private bath filled entirely with watered-down wine for spiritual purification. Or so he claimed. Senator Tullius, eyes now glassy from drink, raises a hand. It's ironic, isn't it, he muses aloud, that we fight over water but drown in wine? Fabius nods, still grim from his lead-pipe sermon. Perhaps because wine makes us forget. Water makes us remember how little we have. Poetry, Fabius, Marcellus says lazily, tipping his glass in approval. You'll be unbearable by sunrise. A few senators laugh, the kind of laugh that bubbles up not from joy, but from sheer exhaustion. It's a sound you've heard before, during all-night debates, on battlefields and funerals. The laugh of people who are too tired to cry, so they pour another drink instead. A commotion rises near the far benches. Senator Pulcher, round, red-faced, and never far from a jug, is loudly accusing someone of hoarding the good wine. The chamber ignores him. You lean back, eyes drifting again. Through the arches, you catch a glimpse of the aqueduct arches against the night sky, silhouetted against faint stars. Those ancient veins, stretching across hills and valleys, still deliver water to fountains and villas, baths and brothels. For now. But the senators? They drink and squabble and bribe and toast, hoping to stay just one step ahead of the collapse. Historians still debate whether Rome's water system truly failed, or whether the people who managed it simply stopped caring. Octavius, now on his second or maybe third goblet, offers a grand proposal. I say we divert one aqueduct solely for wine, he declares. Think of the morale. Think of the parties. Think of the lawsuits, mutters Livy, rubbing her temples. Cassius smiles, swirling his wine. There's something profoundly Roman in that idea. Turn water into wine, then back into power. Or headaches, Tullius adds, burping softly. More laughter. The conversation drifts into toasts, then stories. Someone reminisces about a bathhouse in Ostia that supposedly had lavender-scented steam. Another recounts a prank involving a fish in a senator's pipe. The stories get sillier, more fragmented. You hear bits about water tariffs, fountains shaped like lions, a debate over whether imported marble affects water taste. None of it matters, and yet it all does. Because this is Rome too. Not just the monuments and legions, not just the emperors and conquests, but senators, tipsy and tired, arguing over plumbing while sipping Falernian beneath flickering torchlight. Eventually the wine slows. The goblets empty, the laughter fades, you feel the room dimming. The torches are burning lower now, casting softer shadows. Senators stretch out across their benches or lean against the cool walls, voices reduced to murmurs and snores. The wine has done its job, dulled the urgency, softened the sharp edges, allowed everyone to believe for just a little while that the water will keep flowing forever. You close your eyes again. Somewhere deep in the distance, a fountain bubbles. Maybe it's flowing into a nobleman's garden. Maybe it's just running into the dirt. But tonight, it sounds like a lullaby. A distant splash, a faint, wet squelch, and then the unmistakable sound of someone yelling, "Sabotage!" You open one eye slowly. Senator Crassus stands drenched in the center of the chamber, robes clinging to him like a defeated toga ghost. He points a trembling, wet finger toward the corridor. "Someone tampered with the Cloaca Maxima," he bellows. You blink groggily. The Cloaca Maxima, Rome's great sewer. A triumph of engineering and an absolute nightmare when things go wrong. And tonight, clearly, something has gone very wrong. Cassius sits bolt upright, immediately suspicious. Tampered, you say? As in, sabotaged? Or as in you tripped into a puddle of your own paranoia. Crassus glares, puddle forming beneath his feet. It's bubbling, Cassius, bubbling backward. Upward. The flow has reversed. A few senators stir. Marcellus groans loudly. Oh, great. Now even the sewers are protesting. Don't mock me, Crassus snaps. There's flooding in the lower forum. Stalls submerged. A man lost his sandal to a drainage vortex. Perhaps it's Neptune's vengeance, Livia suggests flatly, not looking up from her half-finished scroll. Or Mercury's prank, mutters someone from the shadows. Crassus ignores them. This is no coincidence. I've spoken to engineers. This isn't natural. Someone blocked the feeder channels, redirected the runoff, and now the system is collapsing. You sit upright now, fully awake. This isn't just another dry fountain or trickling bathhouse. If the Cloaca Maxima is backing up, the entire city could be in danger. Streets flooding, wells tainted, temples unsanctified. Marcellus squints. Who in their right mind would sabotage a sewer? Cassius responds immediately. Someone desperate. Someone making a statement. Sabotage the water, you inconvenience a villa. Sabotage the sewer, and you hit every citizen. A pause. Senator Tullius speaks quietly. Could it be retaliation? For rationing? For the gladiator water privileges? Historians still argue, you remember, whether the Great Sewer Reversal of 41 BCE was a natural hydraulic failure or a deliberate act of political protest. Some even claim it was an inside job, an attempt to shift blame during budget cuts. But tonight, in the torchlit murk of the Senate, it feels personal and wet. Senator Larcia, a sharp-tongued woman from the Quirinal, folds her arms. I told you all. Ignore the poor long enough, and they find other ways to be heard, even if it means weaponizing the sewers. You're saying this was planned? Asks Sextus, genuinely alarmed. I'm saying, Larcia answers, we've been treating water like a luxury item in a city that runs on public faith. Sewage is the city's silent revenge. Crassus, still dripping, gestures wildly. We need action, a full investigation. We must inspect the main valves, detain the engineers, maybe even close the baths until further notice. The chamber erupts in groans. Close the baths? That's one step short of declaring martial law. Marcellus lifts a hand, already exhausted. Let's not panic. Rome has survived worse than a squelchy sandal. Livia adds, let's be honest, half of you wouldn't know a sewer valve if it bit you. Cassius smiles faintly. They do resemble certain senators. More groans, more murmurs. But the mood is different now. No longer sleepy sarcasm, but a faint edge of worry. The room smells faintly damper. Less like wine. More like something stewing in marble shadows. Fabius, still nursing his lead pipe theory, mutters, the city is rotting from within. Marcellus, not missing a beat, says, then it finally matches our politics. You exhale slowly, feeling the weight of Rome pressing down. Not just the grandeur, the history, the endless mosaics and arches, but the pipes, the drains, the gurgling underground that keeps it all together, unseen, unappreciated, until it bursts. Crassus wrings out his sleeve. I expect immediate action, a motion, a vote, something. But no one moves. Senators mutter vague agreements, nod sagely, and promptly begin discussing who might be best suited to lead a sewer subcommittee, knowing full well that nothing will happen until daylight. If then, you lean back again. Rome. Always reactive, never proactive. Perhaps the Cloaca Maxima is just another senator at heart, ancient, stubborn, and increasingly prone to outbursts. Outside, thunder rumbles. Or maybe it's just the sewer gurgling again. You close your eyes. If water is Rome's lifeblood and wine its comfort, the sewer is surely its dark subconscious. Tonight that subconscious seems determined to speak, loudly and wetly. Still you smile. Even Rome's nightmares come with punchlines. The storm, or sewer, rumbles again, a deep growl that vibrates through the stone underfoot. You shift slightly, wondering if the senators can feel it too. Judging by the way some are now inspecting their sandals, they can. Cassius lifts the hem of his toga with theatrical disdain. I swear, he mutters, if this floor gets any wetter, I'll start breeding fish in my shoes. Livia, never one to miss an opportunity, adds, be sure to register them as citizens. We'll need their votes for sewer reform. Another tired wave of laughter rolls through the chamber, but it's thinner now, more brittle. The lightness is fading. A few senators are actually on their feet, talking quietly in pairs. Eyes flick toward the door, toward the sound of distant, running water, not the good kind. And then, as if summoned by the gods of irony, a breathless courier stumbles into the room. He's soaked, not rain-soaked, street-soaked. The kind of wet that makes everyone take an unconscious step back. The Imperial Villa, he pants, flooded. Basement fish pond overflowed. Emperor's prized carp escaped into the kitchens. There's a pause, a collective processing. Then, his fish? Marcellus gasps, hand to chest. The courier nods solemnly, dripping on the floor. Swimming in the corridors, sir. You can almost feel the silence tighten into a wince, because now it's serious. The Emperor doesn't like when things happen to his fish. A new energy zips through the air. Not panic, yet, but a sort of nervous recalculation. Senators adjust belts, straighten collars, shift in their seats as if to say, "We were just getting to that, of course." Suddenly, everyone remembers they've always cared deeply about water infrastructure. Cassius is the first to recover. Right, yes, we must act swiftly, for the people, and the koi. Marcellus glares. They're carp, not koi. Whatever they are, they have political influence now, Livia murmurs dryly. Octavius, who's mostly slept through the past hour, suddenly perks up. Are we voting on the fish? Cassius waves him off. No, Octavius, we're forming a delegation. And just like that, the idea solidifies. A small group of senators will make the long, wet journey to the imperial palace. They'll bow deeply. They'll offer solutions. They'll pretend to have had those solutions hours ago. You watch it unfold like a slow-moving farce. Names are nominated. Marcellus declines. Livia declines. Tullius volunteers, clearly hoping the imperial archivists might let him browse while he's there. Cassius and Fabius are volunteered without their consent. Crassus insists on joining. He has a personal relationship with one of the fish. The rest of the Senate agrees, in principle, to support the delegation, which, as always, means avoiding personal risk while applauding from a safe, dry distance. Meanwhile, the courier stands silently in the middle of the floor, still dripping. Marcellus finally acknowledges him. You poor soul, he says kindly. Did you at least rescue one of the carp? The courier blinks. Sir, I slipped on one. Marcellus winces. Then we must act quickly. That could be treason. You sit back again, letting the absurdity settle into your bones. Rome's greatest minds, scrambling not over famine or plague, but slippery fish. Historians still argue whether the carp incident ever truly happened. Some say it was invented later, a parable about priorities. Others swear by first-hand records, guards slipping in hallways, kitchens soaked, a senator nearly impaled on a decorative trident while attempting to rescue the emperor's favorite. But tonight, in this torchlit room that smells faintly of sewage and old wine, it feels real. Real enough that it might prompt action. The delegation finally gathers, cloaked and grumbling, stepping carefully around puddles. Cassius stops in the doorway, turns dramatically. If we do not return, he says solemnly, ensure the aqueducts are cleaned, the pipes relined, the flow restored. You're going to check on some wet fish, Livia calls after him. Not storm the Parthian frontier. Cassius nods. Still, remember us fondly. Then he vanishes into the corridor, Fabius and the others trailing behind. The door swings shut. The room is quiet. You exhale slowly. Something might actually happen now. Not because of votes, not because of policies, but because one carp couldn't handle a sewer backup. It's so Roman, you almost laugh. You close your eyes again. Let the sound of trickling water carry you. Let the image of senators in fish-related crisis lull you. The pipes may groan, the fountains may sputter, but for now, the empire survives. On wet marble, and wobbly egos, and one carp swimming valiantly through a palace corridor. The chamber feels strangely calm in their absence. The door has barely stopped echoing from the delegation's departure when the room seems to let out a collective breath. The fish crisis, absurd as it may be, has cleared the air. With Cassius, Fabius, and Crassus off to face the emperor's wrath, or his damp amusement, the remaining senators settle deeper into their cushions, content to ride out the rest of the night in relative peace. Or so you think. Because from the shadows, a quiet voice rises. Has anyone seen Marcus Aqueductus? You frown, not recognizing the speaker at first. It's Senator Pollio, a forgettable man with the forgettable face of a stone bust no one polishes. He blinks nervously around the chamber, clearly expecting recognition. Livia raises an eyebrow. I'm sorry, who? Marcus, Pollio insists. Marcus Aqueductus, senior inspector, oversaw the Aqua Claudia repairs, made all those long reports no one read. Tullius straightens slightly. I remember the name, scribbled meticulous notes, had a nervous cough. Exactly, Pollio nods. Always wore sandals 2 sizes too big. Said it helped him connect with the terrain. Marcellus groans. Pollio, are we now trading ghost stories? Pollio frowns. He's missing. The room stills again, just slightly. You feel the pause, like someone holding their breath under bathwater. Marcellus snorts. Missing, or conveniently unavailable because someone made him fix a sewer valve during a thunderstorm? Pollio hesitates. That's the thing. He was fixing a valve. 3 nights ago, down near the Esquiline slope. A lower-level maintenance shaft. But he never came back up. You sit up now, the sleepiness pushed back a little. Something in Pollio's tone doesn't feel dramatic. It feels genuine. Livia squints. Was he alone? Pollio shakes his head. 2 junior assistants went with him. They came back. He didn't. Did they see anything? Asks Tullius, voice quiet. They said he went down a side tunnel, Pollio murmurs. Something about a pressure lock. Then silence. A few strange noises. Then nothing. Marcellus rubs his temples. Let me guess. They fled, claimed they'd lost track, and left a valuable city official behind in a tunnel full of echoing pipes and rats. Pollio nods. And one claimed the tunnel smelled of sulfur. The other swore he heard whispering. Now that gets attention. You sit forward a little, and so do a few others. Rome is rational, yes, mostly. But its underbelly? Its shadows? Those are places where reason gets wet and slips. Tullius looks thoughtful. Some of those tunnels date back to the earliest Etruscan days. No maps, no markers. You could be 2 blocks from the Senate and still get lost forever. Livia snorts softly, or someone silenced him. That stops the air in your chest. Pollio looks up, startled. Silenced, Livia shrugs. He wrote too many reports, asked too many questions. Remember the private siphons he documented? The redirected flows? The villas pulling pressure at night? What if someone decided Marcus was inconvenient? Cassius would have loved this part, you think. Marcellus rolls his eyes. Oh, please, you think a senator would sneak into a storm drain to push an inspector into the shadows? Livia lifts her goblet. Not personally. That's what underpaid laborers are for. Silence again. Not accusatory. Just weary. Historians still argue about Marcus Aqueductus, whether he drowned, fell, was mugged, or whether he stumbled upon something he wasn't supposed to see, a siphon line, a villa branch, a bribe exchange, and simply vanished into silence. Pollio clears his throat. His last report was titled Flow Deviations in the Palatine Sector. It named 2 estates. One of them, he adds quietly, belonged to Senator Drusus. Marcellus exhales. The same Drusus who's definitely not at tonight's session. Livia nods. And who has the only rooftop vineyard in Rome still getting enough irrigation to grow grapes in winter. The chamber quiets again. Somewhere, a pipe hisses. Octavius, half asleep, mumbles. Was Marcus the one with the limp? No, says Pollio gently. That was Flaccus. He drowned last spring. Octavius nods slowly. Ah, the one who tripped on the ladder. Slipped, Pollio says, according to the report. Or was pushed, Livia mutters just loud enough. You rub your eyes. Now the fatigue feels heavier. Not from lack of sleep, but from the creeping suspicion that beneath every splash of water, every babbling fountain, every draining bath, someone's keeping secrets. Secrets in scrolls, in valves, in tunnels. And maybe, just maybe, that's why the water never flows quite the same in any 2 places. Pollio sighs. We should look for him. Tullius nods slowly. At first light, with torches, and maybe some guards. Marcellus waves a hand. Yes, at first light. For now, let's not go chasing shadows in the drainage system. Let's honor Marcus by not ending up like Marcus. But even he sounds less certain now. The chamber dims again. Sleep edges in. But this time, the stillness feels heavier. You close your eyes, but your mind wanders tunnels, stone corridors, dripping echoes. A man walking with a scroll in one hand and a wrench in the other. And then silence. Perhaps Marcus Aqueductus is still down there. Perhaps he never left. And perhaps Rome, for all its grandeur, still hides its sins in the sewers. You awaken to the sound of dripping water, sharp, irregular, louder than before. The chamber smells wetter now, more sour than steam. Somewhere in the dark, a scroll has fallen into a puddle and no one picks it up. Senator Larchia is pacing. That's how you know the night has turned again. The wine has worn off, the jokes are over. Now it's back to business. If business means anxiety poorly disguised as indignation. This isn't just about Marcus, she says flatly. Or the fish, or the pipes. This city is leaking at every seam. Marcellus mumbles from his reclined bench. You said that already. Well, now I mean it, she snaps. The Tiber is rising. That silences the room again. Even Octavius opens both eyes this time. Lartia crosses her arms, damp sandal tapping on wet stone. The embankments were supposed to be reinforced last season. The floodgates cleaned, the overflow channels widened. Instead, the river's up past the fourth marker, and the Forum Boarium smells like a drowned goat market. Cassius would have loved that metaphor, you think. Pollio nods slowly. We've seen this before. When the Tiber swells, everything backs up. The streets, the latrines, the public faith. Tullius shifts nervously. The grain barges can't dock when the banks flood, and if grain doesn't move. Livia finishes for him. Neither do we. A murmur spreads. Grain panic. The one thing guaranteed to get even the laziest senators to sit upright. Rome's belly is more powerful than any god. Historians still debate whether the great Tiber surge that winter was caused by mismanagement or fate, whether it was simply the river reminding the city who really ran things. But tonight, the Senate doesn't care for theories. It cares for plausible deniability. Marcellus swings his legs off the bench with a groan. All right, who was responsible for flood inspection this year? All heads turn slowly toward Sextus, who immediately holds up both hands. I submitted my report, he says quickly. Well, I drafted it. The committee was going to review it in April. It's May, Sextus. Lartia hisses. Sextus shrugs, half sunk in defeat. There were scheduling issues, the usual delays. Livia pinches the bridge of her nose. You scheduled a meeting to talk about flooding after flood season. Better than last year, Sextus mutters. That one was canceled altogether. A few senators actually laugh, sharp, bitter sounds like cracked amphory. You lean back, staring at the ceiling, wondering how a city this powerful manages to run on nothing but missed deadlines and soft threats. Tullius looks toward the torchlight. If the Tiber rises much more, the lower aqueducts will flood too. The channels will overflow, waste and drinking water will mix. Again, someone mutters from the dark. Lartia takes a deep breath. Then let's say it plainly. If we don't act tonight, Rome wakes up tomorrow with sewer water in her bread ovens. Octavius groans. Why must everything be so visual with you people? But she's right. You can feel it. The pressure in the pipes, the weight behind the walls, the dull throb beneath the floor, the city's underground system bracing itself like a tired lung. Marcellus stands now, brushing off his robes. Fine. We need a response. Sandbags. Diversions. Something. Pollio frowns. Where? There's no plan. No map. The last survey of the flood paths was, what, 12 years ago? Livia nods grimly. And it was stored in the Eastern Archives. A pause. Which flooded, Tullius adds. Of course they did. A few aides are dispatched, half-dressed and bleary-eyed, to summon emergency crews, to knock on the doors of temple custodians, to pull engineers from their sleep. One senator, red-eyed and silent all night, volunteers to ride to the embankments and check the markers himself. He doesn't wait for applause. He just wraps himself in his cloak and disappears into the wet dark. You're left in a chamber that smells like moss and something older, like mildew on a broken promise. Sextus stares down at his wet sandals. The city wasn't built for this kind of weather. Marcellus gives him a tired smile. The city wasn't built for this kind of senate. No one argues. Outside, a wind rises, sweeping through the arches. You hear the faint, ominous slosh of water moving somewhere it shouldn't. Tonight, no one sleeps. Not even Octavius. The Senate sits in weary silence, listening to the sound of Rome slowly filling up. Somewhere beneath your feet, a gutter coughs. Somewhere further, a fountain chokes. And the Tiber rolls on, swollen with rain, memory, and blame. A soft honk echoes through the chamber. Not a trumpet, not a human voice. A honk. You blink, certain you imagined it, but then it comes again. Louder. Angry. Feathered. Are those geese? Marcellus asks flatly, peering into the dark. Before anyone can answer, the door to the Senate creaks open, slowly, dramatically, as if pushed not by man but by destiny itself, and in marches a small, furious flock of sacred geese. Feathers fly. Sandals slap. Dignity crumbles. Chaos ensues. You lurch upright as the first goose charges down the central aisle, honking like Jupiter himself is late for a sacrifice. Octavius screams. Livia swats at one with a scroll. Pollio tries to climb onto a bench and slips, legs flailing in what can only be described as senatorial distress. Why? Marcellus huffs, dodging a beak. Is this happening? Sextus is already pressed against the wall, eyes wide. Temple of Juno must have flooded. That's where they're kept. Aide number 3 stumbles in moments later, soaked and breathless. The Aventine slopes overrun. Temple guards open the gates to let the birds seek high ground. The chamber has officially lost all order. The sacred geese of Juno, normally revered, honored, and mildly terrifying, have turned the Senate floor into a honking battleground. And worse, they've apparently mistaken the marble columns for territorial rivals. One of them begins pecking aggressively at a Corinthian capital. Lartia, ever composed, stands on a bench and shouts over the honking. This is it, isn't it? The gods are mocking us. First the pipes, then the floods, now the geese. Cassius, had he been here, would have declared it divine theater. Tullius, face red and arms flailing as he tries to herd a particularly vengeful bird, yells, "The Lex Aquarum was supposed to include protections for sacred sites." "This is a sacred site now," Livia yells back, "because the geese say so." Marcellus somehow ends up with a goose perched on his shoulder, eyes gleaming like it just won a philosophical debate. "I yield," he mutters. "This bird now represents my district." You can barely keep from laughing, though you're just awake enough to realize this absurd spectacle is Roman politics in its purest form. Sacred symbols turned accidental saboteurs, order collapsing under the weight of forgotten bylaws and bird droppings. Historians still argue about the goose incident. Some say it was a metaphor. Others claim the birds saved the chamber from a worse fate, having honked just in time to wake the dozing senators before the Tiber breached the upper streets. A few even insist one of the geese pecked the exact scroll detailing illegal siphon schemes. You watch as Sextus tiptoes toward the scroll stand, gently batting away a goose with a damp toga. Can we just vote on something? Anything? No, says Marcellus, because one of the geese is sitting on the ballot box. It is, and it hisses when anyone approaches. Pollio wipes his forehead. Maybe we wait. And so they do. Eventually, the geese settle. Some roost under benches. One stands in the center like a sentinel, beady eyes tracking every movement. The senators arrange themselves cautiously, careful not to provoke further honking. Lartia sighs, brushing feathers from her robe. This is what Rome has come to. Overrun by sewage, soaked by the Tiber, and ruled by birds. Better than being ruled by us, mutters Tullius. And again, no one disagrees. The chamber grows quiet, tired, philosophical even. Livia, reclining as best she can with a goose underfoot, muses aloud. Do you think the geese remember the Gauls? Everyone knows the story. How, centuries ago, the sacred geese of Juno famously honked during the night, warning the Romans of an impending Gallic sneak attack. They saved the city once. Maybe tonight they're trying again. You lean back, listening to the rhythmic cooing and soft rustles of feathers. The city above may be flooding, the pipes groaning, the aqueducts failing, but here, beneath torchlight and marble, the geese are standing watch. Whether out of loyalty, instinct, or sheer birdly spite. Marcellus gently pets the goose on his shoulder. Do you think they'd be offended if I named him Neptune? Lartia closes her eyes. Only if he starts billing you for water. Soft laughter for once, without bitterness. Tonight, at the tail end of disaster, bureaucracy, and bird invasion, something like camaraderie emerges. Or maybe it's just resignation. You pull your cloak closer and let yourself sink back into dreams again, dreams of geese in togas, senators waddling through flooded streets, and a city that, even when cracked and soggy, still manages to function, if only through sheer, ridiculous will. Rome survives. Not because it's efficient, but because it's Rome. You wake to quiet. Not silence exactly, but the kind of soft, exhausted quiet that follows total collapse. A torch sputters gently somewhere behind you. The marble is still damp, but no longer puddled. The air smells faintly of feathers and old wine. Most of the geese are asleep now, curled in corners like oddly sacred guard dogs. One snores, gently. And the senators, they're slumped, scattered, barely upright. Tullius is half buried in scrolls. Lartia uses a folded robe as a pillow. Marcellus leans against a column, the goose still on his shoulder like a tired advisor. The chamber looks like the morning after a philosophical bender. You rub your eyes and sit up, just in time to hear the door creak open once more. This time, no fanfare. No fish, no honking. Just the returning delegation. Cassius leads them in, damp and wide-eyed. His hair is windblown, his sandals are missing. Fabius is trailing behind Sut, muttering about divine omens. Crassus smells like fish. Marcellus, barely looking up, says, "Did the emperor spare the carp?" Cassius stares at him, deadpan. "He promoted one." There's a beat of stunned silence. Then Livia cracks a smile. "To what?" "Director of flow," Fabius mutters. A few groans, a few laughs, but mostly weariness. It's clear they've been through something. Not danger, exactly, but humiliation, spectacle, and the quiet horror of being blamed for something no one controls. Cassius drops into his seat, sighing loudly. The palace is a mess. Fish in the atrium, courtiers arguing about sacred water allocation. The emperor called it a fluid governance issue. Marcellus nods. He always did like his metaphors wet. "We've been assigned a new oversight role," Cassius adds, rubbing his temples. "Flood preparedness. Effective immediately." "Do we get funding?" asks Tullius. Cassius snorts. "No, but we get titles." Another pause. Must finally sits upright. "So let me understand. The aqueducts are cracked, the sewers are reversing, the river is rising, and our official response is to be slightly more responsible." "That," Cassius says, "and to prevent further geese incidents." The goose on Marcellus's shoulder opens one eye, offended. Historians never quite agreed on the outcome of the night Rome nearly drowned in its own bad plumbing. Some records mention an emergency infrastructure committee formed that month, made up of senators whose robes still smelled of Tiber silt. Others tell of a brief improvement in maintenance reports, followed swiftly by budget cuts. But here in this room, the story is simpler. Everyone is just tired. Crassus speaks up, voice hoarse. "There was a moment, standing in that corridor, ankle-deep in fish water, listening to the emperor argue with a servant about goldfish bowls, when I realized something." Livia sighs. "Here we go." Crassus straightens, suddenly earnest. Rome runs on illusion. On the illusion that someone is in charge, that the water knows where to go, that the drains obey logic, that the city, vast and ancient, can be controlled. No one interrupts. He continues. "But the truth is, it doesn't flow because we command it. It flows because we pretend we can't see the leaks." A quiet settles in. Not agreement, not disagreement, just understanding. You look around the room, at the togas stained, the scrolls soggy, the floor cluttered with goose feathers and broken reed pens, and you see not a failure of governance, but the persistence of it. Rome hasn't fallen. It's just soggy. Cassius finally lifts a scroll. "All right, we draft a new proposal. A revised flow management plan, better citywide inspections, perhaps a temple liaison." "For the geese?" Tullius asks. "For everyone," Cassius says, rubbing his eyes. "We make it sound official, like we always do." Pollio raises a weak hand. "Do we still investigate Marcus Aqueductus?" Everyone goes quiet. Then Lartia nods. "Yes, we find him, or what he found, and we fix what we can." "And the rest?" asks Fabius. Marcellus leans back, eyes already closing again. "We blame Neptune." A few final laughs echo softly through the chamber. They're faint, but real. The scroll is passed around. Notes are made. Names added. It's the beginning of something, even if no one truly believes it'll change the tides. But the effort matters. Rome has always been built not on certainty, but on the performance of it. Tonight, with the geese snoring and the aqueducts wheezing, the senators play their parts once more. You settle back, letting the warmth of the torchlight brush your face. Outside, the water still rises. But inside, for now, the marble holds. Outside, the sky begins to gray. Not quite dawn, but the first tremor of light behind the clouds. Somewhere beyond the Senate walls, a rooster calls hesitantly, like even it isn't sure anyone's ready for morning. Inside, the torches sputter low. One burns out with a soft hiss. The scent of oil and damp parchment hangs in the air like a final sigh. No one speaks for a long while. Senator Tullius leans over the edge of the fountain basin and lazily skims a finger across the surface. The water is still, remarkably, absurdly still. Not even a ripple. You wonder if it's waiting, too. Cassius breaks the silence first. "We're going to need to lie," he says. No one disagrees. "Tell the public the system's under control," he continues, "even if half of it's underwater and the other half's being used to wash wine goblets." Marcellus shrugs. "That is control, by Roman standards." Pollio looks down at the soggy notes in his lap. "Do we mention the missing inspector?" Livia exhales through her nose. "Only if we find him. Otherwise, he'll be the first ghost in a long line." No one flinches at the word ghost. You've heard it too many times tonight. In the pipes, in the sewers, in the absence of action disguised as resolution. Octavius finally lifts his head. And the sacred geese? A moment's pause. We assign them a title, Marcellus says. Emergency Auditory Alert Division, Lartia nods. They did more than the curators this week. Even the goose on the floor flaps one wing in approval, then promptly resumes sleeping. One by one, the senators begin to gather their things. Scrolls are collected. Robes are wrung out. Sandals are quietly slid back onto swollen feet. There is no ceremony, no grand statement of purpose. Just men and women standing slowly from benches they've occupied far too long. Tullius wraps a damp scarf around his neck. Will we meet again tomorrow? Marcellus tilts his head. Depends. Will there be geese? You smile at that, and so do a few others. Outside the chamber, the sound of flowing water, clean flowing water, catches your attention. Somewhere in the distance, a pipe has cleared itself. You hear it burble with determination, like the city's veins awakening. Cassius stands beside you now, looking toward the arched window where pale gray light stretches over the rooftops. Do you think we accomplished anything? He asks. You consider. The fish, the flood, the sabotage, the missing inspector, the sacred birds, the absurd debates, the laughter and exhaustion, the willingness finally to look at the cracks. Maybe not, you murmur, but we remembered we should. He nods, faintly satisfied. Historians would later record this night as a footnote, if they recorded it at all. But perhaps that's how Rome survives, not in the pages of its glory, but in the quiet, ridiculous moments where no one gives up. Because Rome isn't a monument. It's a mosaic, cracked, waterlogged, weirdly feathered, and somehow still holding together. The senators file out slowly, one by one. As for you, you stay just a moment longer, listening to the last sleepy honk, watching the first torch go cold, feeling the warm trickle of a pipe somewhere underfoot, flowing not with force, but with persistence. And then at last, you let your body soften into the marble. Your breath evens, your eyes close, and Rome hums. Now, as the last echoes of water fade and the torches burn out, your mind drifts further from the chamber. You let go of the pipes, the puddles, the political posturing. Let go of the senators wrapped in half-wet togas. Let go of the geese, the scrolls, even the carp, heroic as they were. Breathe in. Feel the marble cool beneath your spine. Feel the air shift from damp to still. You've walked the aqueducts of ancient Rome, through every argument, every drip, every laugh-soaked accusation. And now the city quiets. Not because all is fixed, but because all has been faced. Breathe out. Breathe out. The weight of the empire softens, the debates dissolve, the echoing chambers fade behind you. You are no longer a senator. You are no longer watching senators. You're just you. Tired. Floating. Still. In the distance, the water still runs, but not too loud, not too fast. Just enough to carry you gently away. Let the pipes gurgle, let the fountains burble, let the Tiber whisper to the stones. Rome will wait. For now, your only job is to sleep.